So on the screen here, I have the a version of the finished code. As you can see, request HTML, we're going to be using a session object, which means we can reuse the underlying TCP connection because we're going to be going to the same website. The website is a demo site. It's this one here. It's e-commerce products. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each page, and then we're going to get each link to the product and then get the product information from within inside that link. Just a bit more in depth, because you could just take this piece of information, but that's not really going to get you very far. So what have we got? We've got a few functions. We have one that gets our product links, and now don't worry, I'm going to go through this line by line. We're going to recreate it, and I'll explain how I've split my functions up like this. Some to pass the links into the to get the actual information, and then exporting it into CSV. Now, quite often I use pandas to export to for my CSV files, but we're not going to do that in this case. It's not necessary. The reason why I tend to use pandas more is because generally I want to do something with the data before I move it on to wherever or anything like that. So that's why I use pandas. But this option, we're just going to dump it out to a CSV file. And here is some pagination. And then we're going to use if name is equal to main at the bottom, which you don't have to do, but I'm going to in this instance. Right, so let's get started. So let's go ahead, and I'll have a new file here. Let's have a bit more of that. And I'm going to import in request HTML at the top. So I'm going to make an assumption at this point that you have Python installed, you know how to pip install something, and you have a code editor that you like to use. I'm using PyCharm. You can use whatever one you like. So I'm going to go ahead and install this, import this rather. So we're going to do from request HTML. We're going to use the session. So we want to import HTML session. This is the session object. Then we're going to say S is equal to our HTML session, noting the parentheses there, the brackets. So now we have this session object. What we can do is we can use this to actually make requests to the server. So I'm going to say R, which is going to be the response object that comes back, that we're going to store it in this variable, is equal to s.get, and then the URL, which we are going to define above here. So let's do URL is equal to, come to our page, and go ahead and grab this URL. Let's put that there for now. What I like to do first is print r.status code. We're going to go ahead and just make sure that this is a 200 response. And that's because I want to make sure that what I'm getting is a good response from the server. Anything 200-ish is good. 300 is a redirect, 400 is the page doesn't exist usually. And usually a 500 is some kind of forbidden, which probably means you don't have access to that page. What I like to do next is do r.text, so we can actually see the text response. This is going to be a load of HTML, hopefully, and I like to look through this just to see and make sure that we're not getting basically just some JavaScript back that doesn't have any information in it, and that there is actually what we're after in here. Now, you could search for it. Quite often I do that. I'll search for something in here, but I know that this is good. This all looks good to me. The last thing that I want to do now is I want to actually check out the website itself and have a look around and have a feel of how it works, how the pagination works, etc., etc. So assuming that we want to do this clothing category, which we're in, the first thing I'll do is I'll click on a page link, and you can see that the URL's changed at the top. And if I was to go ahead and change this 2 back to a 1, we get the first load of results. So the best thing to do then is to go ahead, and we're going to use this for our pagination. So I'm going to put that in there. And we're going to say, let's deal with the first page to start with. What we can do is we can change this number as we go along to get different pages. And I will explain that when we get there. The next thing that I'd like to do is to have a look, inspect. Let's do view source first. So this is what we got back in our terminal when we did the r.text. And if you just wanted to have a look and make sure that this looks about right, one thing you can do is copy some of the text, for example, from the actual page and search for it. You can do this in your terminal as well when you get your r.text. And we can see that this actually has h2 tags with this title in, which means that we are happy to go ahead with this method. Now, if this doesn't appear in the view source, that means you can't use this method to get out the information, and you'll need to use a different way, which is kind of outside of the scope of the video. I've got other videos that cover scraping JavaScript, etc. So let's go ahead and have our inspect element tool up. So we're happy to look at the DOM now, which is what this represents. So we can really have a look in at the elements. What I like to do is sort of hover over one product first and then kind of just go back out a little bit. I can't quite get it here, but we'll go down instead through the tree and we'll see as we go through. Where are we? Let's keep going. I'm lost now. So let's just click on one to start with and go back up that way. And here we go. So I found this UL class products. And you see when I hover over that, the whole of the products part turns blue on the left-hand side. That's good. That means that that's where we want to start looking. You can see underneath it, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit more, that we have all of these LI classes. So UL is an unordered list and LI is a list item, and each one of those is a product. Now looking at the text here, the class information, well, that's an awful lot. So we probably don't want to be using the classes to search for the list items in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and search and find this products element and then find each list item that's within this UL class products. And this is where I like to use CSS selectors over, say, Beautiful Soup selectors. It obviously does work that way. I'm just used to CSS selectors. You can use XPath as well if that's what you know. If you're new to this, I would recommend CSS selectors to start with. Right, so what we want to do now is we want to actually try and find some information. So let's go ahead and change the text, and we're going to do html.find. So our R variable here contains the whole of the response, and we can search within it. So we're saying this is our response. We're going to search within the HTML using this find method to look for our ul.products. So this is our base CSS selector, UL unordered list, which was this one here, and the class is products. And to do a class, we use a dot. So I'm going to save that and I'm going to run this, and we're going to see that we get this element UL class products down here. Now you'll notice that this is in brackets, and that's because find always returns a list. It's just the way that it works. Now what you want to do is, because we don't want a list, we only want one element, we want the first element. Within here we can just do first is equal to true, and that's just going to return us the very first element that matches this CSS selector. Run it again, and there we go. There's our element that does now is now not a list. However, what we want to do is we want to actually expand this. We don't want to find this element. We actually want to find all of the list items that are inside this element. So I'm going to change it to a space li. Now notice I'm not referencing any class on this list item. You absolutely could if you needed to, but we don't need to. These are just list items here. You can see that's where our products UL, our unordered list, closes. So we're going to get all of these li items within inside this unordered list. We want to get rid of this because we do want a list. We want to know all of these elements. So let's run that, and we get all of these elements back. You can see we have a list of them, and you can see that they have, here's the class is all broken up here, but you can see products, post 8129, etc., etc. So we are in the right place, and these are all the elements that are going to contain the initial link to all the products on that page. So that's what we're going to try and do first, is we're going to get all of the links. Let's just make this a bit easier. All of the links to all of the products. Bearing in mind we're going to be going for page 1 first, so it won't actually be these ones. So what we're going to do is we want to save this into a variable. So I'm just going to say products is equal to this list item, so this list of elements. Then we can do for item in product. So this is just a basic Python for loop. So if I was to just print the item out now, all we're going to get is this list one by one as I go through. You can see there we've got each one out now. So this gives us our iterable object. So now we can actually call something on this item, which is going to give us the information. So we want to do item.find. So we can use the same .find on our item here that we did up in here in our r.html, but we're not in the response object anymore. We've broken it out into these elements, this list of elements, so we can do .find. So let's go ahead and search for an A tag, because in HTML an A tag is going to mean a link. So we can hit find, and these are all of the links that were in each one of those elements. So you can see that we actually have the links to the products now. This is obviously page 1. So we get all those links to the product. So how do we get just the href from this element? Well, that's nice and easy. We can just go ahead and do .attrs, open up our brackets and reference that we want the key for href. So attrs stands for attributes, and each one of these, not the a tag, sorry, the href, this is the attribute. Okay, so we're getting this. Now, I'm going to run this now, but we probably want to do first is equal to true because, as you can see, attribute error list has no attribute. If you get this, it's because you're returning a list of elements and you need to say your first is equal to true so you don't get that list. So we can actually ask for the href attribute from each one. Let's run that. There we go. So there's all the links to the products on the first page. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the URL to 2. And there is the second list of links to each product. So we've successfully managed to write some code that is going to go and find all of the actual links to the products on each of the pages. So we've actually started it up quite well here. Now, sometimes you might not have a complete link. So I'll just show you that again. You can see we've got the full link here. Sometimes you only get the end part, and all you need to do is just copy this part and add it to the front. So you might create a base URL variable that has this part on it. So you can actually just concatenate it up together. But this one has the full link, so we're good with that. So what we want to do now is we want to turn this into a function that will take this code here. We can give it a page number, and then we can actually run it over and over again without having to copy and paste this for every page that we want, which is just not practical. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the session outside of the function because we want to use the session for all of our code. I'm going to type in def to define our function name, and we're just going to call this one get product links, close the brackets, hit colon, and we're just going to indent everything that we did. There we go. So what we want to do now is we want to pass in some arguments to our function. So we definitely want to do the page number. So I'm going to put in page here. So whatever we put when we call this function, whatever goes here, we want to put into this URL. So to do that, we use an F string. So at the beginning of our URL here, just outside the quote mark, hit F. I'm going to get rid of the page number, and I'm going to put brackets, and I'll type the word page. So you can see that my code editor has highlighted those, saying us that this is now going to go into here, which is exactly what we want. We can keep this, we can keep this, but we don't want to print this item, this list now, this URL out. We want to save it into our own list. Now you could do this a few different ways. You could use list comprehension if you wanted to, but this is the easiest way. So let's just say links is equal to a blank list. And instead of printing this out, we're going to say links.append. And we're going to put this inside it. So every time it iterates through, we're going to append this link to this links list, which we can then make sure we're outside of our for loop. We can return our list here. So this is our first function. So let's test it out. I'm just going to come underneath here and we'll do get page product links for 1. I'm going to store this one in page 1. Yeah, so I'm storing this, what comes out of this function, I'm storing in this page variable. So when I print it out, page 1, like that, we should see our list of links. There we go. So now you can see that we're starting to create a list of links for each page that we can store into a variable. I'm not going to change page 2 because I'm going to delete that in just a second. This is just a demo. There we go, is our next set of links. Great, so that works. I'm going to delete that for now. And the next thing that we want to work on is actually taking one of the links from this list, opening it up, sending that request out, and then actually passing the information from that product. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll just go back to page 1 and we'll click on the first product. We're going to give this function that we're about to write, this link here, which we're going to grab from our previous function, and we want to grab some data from this page. So let's go ahead and start writing that. We'll just test first and we'll say, let's grab a, let's get one of these links. This one will do. Actually, no, we'll use the proper one here. We'll use this one. Copy that. So let's just call this test link is equal to this whilst we're sorting ourselves out. Spell that right. There we go. So now we can do r is equal to s.get our test link like that, and we can print out our .html.find. And let's go ahead and just grab the first piece of information, which will be the title here, and we'll just check that this works. So you can see that we're actually within this div summary, but we can go straight for the H1 class because it is product title, entry title. Great. So we can do H1 class is a dot, and you'll notice we have a space now here. You can close this up with a dot. Generally speaking, that will work just fine. We need to do first is equal to true because we don't want a list back. We want the actual first match. Then we want .text because we want the text from this element. So make sure I'm not running my function. I'm not. I'm just going to collapse that whilst we're not looking at it. Let's run this now. And there we go. There is the text that we got from this piece of text right here. Now, quite often, sometimes this will come with extra white space around it, or maybe some characters that you don't want. So what you can do is you can quite simply just put, oh, I've copied that there, put .strip at the end, or .replace if you want to remove characters too. So you put in whatever character you wanted to remove and then nothing. But we're happy with that. We'll leave .strip in there for now. There we go, happy. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's move this out of the way, that now this is going to be our title. It's equal to this. Great. So let's go ahead and make a new line of that and grab the next piece of information, which might as well be the price. Now you'll notice that if we open up this span tag thing here, it's broken up into two, but I'm just going to get this P tag because it's going to have all of the information. So P class price. So I'm going to change my selector, P, and it's a class and it's price. The rest should work fine. I'm going to change this to price. Okay, create another new line. And we won't do the description because that's quite a lot of text. How about the SKU? There we go, let's copy that. So there's a span with a class of SKU. We can do that. So let's change SKU. And it was a span tag, class of that. There we go. And one final bit of information. How about the category? There we go. So we have this span class posted in. We'll get that there. So let's create a new one of these and we'll just call this cat span, and it was this class. There we go. So that was nice and easy. This is all very similar always, so you can just duplicate your line. I think in PyCharm it's Control D to duplicate a line. I think it's the same in VS Code. I can't remember. So let's print this all out real quick. Title, price, SKU, cat, just to make sure that this works. There we go. There's all of the information. So now we've successfully written code that is going to take a link that we give it, and it's going to grab this information. We're going to need to tidy this up in a minute, but let's start constructing our function. So let's do def again, and let's call this one pass product, mostly true, and we'll give it a URL. So we're going to indent all of this. And it's not test link anymore. It's going to be the URL that we give it. Okay, so we can see that this is now sort of grayed out a bit, and that's because we're not doing anything with this information. So we need to decide how we want to spit this information out. Now, I'm going to be using a dictionary. I find this is a good way to do it. If you're saving to a database, it's easier to use a tuple because tuple, you can just match it to the columns of your database. Because if you think about dictionaries have keys and databases will have columns. So you'll have two contrasting things there. You just want to have pieces of information that you choose which go into which column in your database. However, for CSV, which is going to be this case, I'm going to use a dictionary. Now, there's a couple of ways that you could actually do this. I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to say product is equal to, here's our dictionary. So I'm going to do title is title. Now, of course, you could put all of this here in this line here, but we're actually going to unfortunately encounter a small error in a little bit. So I'm going to do this first, and then we'll discuss what happens and how we deal with it and how to make it work. So we'll just do this for now so it works. There we go. Let's put a comma at the end of that just for sake. There's our product. And we're going to return out of this function, I'm just going to move these up together, the actual product. Okay, so we can test this function now. So let's go ahead and let's print out what comes out of this function. So we need our parentheses there. Let's go ahead and grab another product link. Let's try this one. There we go. Paste that in here. So with this function takes a URL. Let's run that. Okay, so there's our information. You'll notice that the SKU says NA, and that's because this product actually says NA here. So this is the text. This is not something we've done yet. Right, so what I think we should do now is we should start to combine the first function that we've written to actually give us a list of links, and then combine it with our second function here to get the product information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say our links is equal to, let's copy that. So links is equal to this, and we need to give this a page number. So we'll give it 1. And then we can do for link in, actually I'm going to call this URLs for now. For URL in URLs, again, just a basic for loop, we can print out the response that we get from our pass product function, say that too many times, for the URL. So we're going to take all of the links from the first page and we're going to apply our pass product function to them. So let's run that. We can see them all popping up here. So we've hit an error now. So this is quite a common error, I think, that a lot of people find. And that's saying that this attribute error, none type object has no attribute of text. Now this is kind of misleading because what it actually means is this element doesn't exist. Because it's saying that it can't find the text attribute for it because the element doesn't exist, so you can't apply the .text. Now, the easiest way to manage this is to change how you actually handle the product information. So I'm going to go back up here, and what we're going to do is that now I've identified that this SKU part could maybe not have information in. I'm going to put this underneath instead. We'll just put that there for now. So we leave that like that. I'm going to do a try and accept block here. So we're going to do try and our colon. I'm going to put this inside here. So what this is going to do is it's going to say, right, this is going to try to do this. And if it can't, we then hit our accept block. Now you could just do this and pass through it, but it's much better to handle the error. So I'm going to say accept attribute error. Okay, so I've copied that down here. So you can see that it's come up. And I'm store that error as ERR. So from here, we're actually going to be able to take this error and handle it properly. So we're saying that accept attribute error, which is the one we got. If you don't put an error code in here, what it will do is any error that comes up, it will just pass through or do whatever you put in the accept block. What I'm saying is that the attribute error, which means that if there's a different kind of error that comes up, it's still going to raise that as well. So we're going to go ahead and say our SKU is equal to none. So we have some information. And we're going to leave it like that. You could absolutely print out the error. So let's do print ERR, but we're going to keep going through. So let's see if that works. So we're still passing whatever value of SKU is into our product here, which is why it's possibly sometimes easier to separate it out like this. Another way that you could do it is you could define an empty dictionary at the start and then add the keys and the values as you go along. That would work too. So let's run this. Okay, you see it's gone all the way through. We have one that says none here somewhere. There it is. And we also have our none type attribute error here. We've printed it out. I'm going to remove the print statement for the moment because it's not really helpful to us. Just remember that if you need to do something with it, you can access it like that. So another thing that I'm noticing with this data right away is this little character here, this \n, which signifies a new line within Python. So that's saying there's a new line character here. So if we were to try and put this line to CSV, this is going to come up and it's going to put a new line into our CSV file, which is going to cause it to go all out of alignment and be a real pain. So what I'm going to do is I found that one on the price. So here I'm going to do dot replace our new line \n with nothing. So it's basically just going to say anytime it finds a new line character, it's just going to replace it with nothing. And now when we run this, it's gone. Now we do have this data sandwiched together, so you would want to tidy that up somehow as well. You could do any kind of thing you like with this. You could do a replace or whatever you wanted to do, but we're just going to leave it like that for now, and that's just going to be okay. In fact, we could make this a space so you can see both of them there. Whatever you want to do with this. We'll leave it, actually close it back up. So now we've done some really, really simple, basic data cleaning, and we found that our SKU sometimes doesn't exist in our products. We can actually move on and look at how to run through each page and apply this function and get the information for each page. So I'm going to collapse these. There we go. We can see that this is all good, so we know that we need to put different numbers in here each time and then do something with the information that comes out. So I'm going to say we're going to do 4x in range. So that's going to give us a number 4x in range. 1, 2, we'll just do up to, just do 2 pages for testing. So if I print out x here, all we're going to get is a couple of numbers to start with. You see that come up there? So these are going to be our page numbers now. So I'm going to put in here, I'm going to indent this. We'll get rid of that print x. And now, instead of the 1 here, we're going to put x. I'm just put a space in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, for each number of 1 up until 3, so including 1 but not 3, 1 and 2, we're going to grab the URLs for that page, and then we're going to loop through them, and we're going to pass out each product that we get. So let's run that and see what happens. So here's our products coming through. So we've got way more, and we've moved on to the second page. There we go. So these are all the products that we've now got. We went through and got the second page as well. So what do we want to do? Well, we don't want to print that comes out. We want to actually save this. So I'm going to create a new list. I'm just going to call it results. This is our blank list here. And we're going to do results dot append our past product. We do need that there. So now if I was to go ahead and print out the results at the end, we'll just run this one more time. We're not printing anything out, so we're not going to get anything on it coming up in the terminal. We're just going to have to trust that it's working. There we go. Now we've ended up with a list of dictionaries of all the products, which is nice, which is exactly what we want to end up with. So to make this a bit tidier so we can actually see what's going on, I'm going to put in a couple of print statements just so we know where we're at. So I'm going to say here print, and we'll just say getting page, and then we'll give it the page number like that. And we're also going to, let's go ahead and here, let's print out total results, and we'll do the length of our results list at every pass through. Let's make that say print. So we actually print. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be able to see what page we're on, and each time it goes through and adds a product, it's going to give us a running total of how many products it's done. Okay, so that's really messy, so we don't want that there. Let's put it outside, so after it goes through each page, we get that back. I'm going to come back up into, nope, we're all good there. Let's just run that again. Okay, so you can see each time it goes through, and this is obviously the end list I'm printing out. We get page 1, total results, and it'll count all the way up. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about pagination. On this website here, we can actually easily see how many pages there are for each one. But what happens if you have so many pages and you don't want to do that, or maybe the number of pages will change? What I like to do is just come up and say, like, we're on page 4 at the moment. What happens if we go to page 5? So we do get this error text here. So we could use that. Now you have to explore the whole page, because if I actually hover over these products here, move this up along, you'll see that we do still get this UL class products, which means even if we try and tell it to go and stop when it finds something, we're still going to possibly pick these up. So you just need to be careful and have a think about how you want to run the pagination. So make sure you check what happens when you get to the last page. Now in this instance, I'm not going to include anything in our code like this. I'm just going to go and say, let's, oh, I've lost it now. Where are we? There we go. I'm just going to go and say, look, we can see that there's 4 pages. We're just going to grab those pages. So I'm basically just going to go and put that into our range. Now this isn't a bad thing. This is by no means a bad thing. But what you probably would want to do, and maybe we'll cover in another video, is to find a way that you could put to make it stop when it gets past the end of the pages there. So I'm going to do this now. We're going to go ahead and we won't print the results. We'll print, we don't need to print anything at the end. We're just going to make sure this goes through and we get what we're expecting at the end, which is going to be 4 pages of however many products. 36, so it's probably going to be 46, which is right. So now that we've done that, we need to start thinking about how we're going to save this data. So we want to be able to take this list that we're going to have here, our list of dictionaries, and save it to our CSV file. So I'm going to write a new function that's going to do just that for us. So I'm going to say over here, save CSV, like this. And we're going to give it our results list. So we need to import CSV at the top because we're going to be working with that. This is in core Python, so you don't need to worry about pip installing anything there. And now we can actually start to think about saving this all to CSV. Now, if you think about a CSV file, it's going to have a header row, which is going to be the keys of our dictionary. So you saw, where's our keys are here. These, the title, price, category, and SKU, they're going to be the keys for our dictionary, and we want those to be the header rows. So one of the easiest ways I found to do that is we're just going to say our keys is equal to our results, and then the first item in the list. So because our results is going to be a list dot keys. So this is going to give us all of the keys for the first item. Now this is fine because we know the keys are all the same, so we can just do that. And this is going to give us this keys list that we can then use as our header row. So now we want to do our context manager with open. So this context manager with open will actually open and close the file automatically for us, so we don't have to worry about leaving files open. This is the way you do it in Python. This is the best way. We're going to say products.csv. We'll be happy with that file name. We don't need to change that for anything right now. We want to open that as W, just like that. I'm going to do as F. So F is now going to represent this file as our object in write mode. So we can write to this file. Now, even if this file doesn't exist, Python will create it for you, and we are just in the same directory here, our current working directory. So you'll find it in the same directory as the script is. So let's go ahead and we'll say we want our dictionary writer. So we're just going to call this dict writer is equal to csv.dictWriter. So this is the part of the CSV module that will be able to write dictionaries to our file. And now we can use that, our dict writer instance of this object, to do .write header. And we want to pass in our keys. So we're going to write the header with our keys from our dictionary, as I showed you earlier. And then we can write the rows. So we can do dict writer.write rows we want to do, and then pass in the results list here. So this is basically all you need to do to write a dictionary to a CSV file in Python. So let's go ahead and try that out. I'm just going to change this to one page for now, and we'll do save CSV, our results list there. So let's try that. Okay, we've got an error. Okay, and that's my fault. So I've not used my F variable, which is what you absolutely need to do. And I forgot to put in keys as well here. So this needs to go here because we're telling this, we're instantiating this object here with the file and the keys that we're going to be using for the write header. So I totally missed this part here, which is why we got that error. No worries. Let's run through it now. And I needed not to put keys in there because we're passing it in. So we write the header because we've specified it there. That's my fault, put those the wrong way around. Okay, let's run this again. Total results, 12. And if I open my project up, we have a product.csv with 12 items in with our header, and there's our information. So we've gone and done this. So now we just need to run this for all the pages. So let's put this back up to 5 and we'll run that. But before we do that, I'm just going to make this a little bit neater again. I'm just going to create this as our main function. So our main function is going to be in charge of running all of this. So we can then go ahead and put our if name is equal to our main function down here, our main file here. We'll run the main function. So you don't have to do this bit, that's totally optional. I just like to do it because it's just a bit neater and tidier so I can see what's going on. And also this means that this will only run when we actually run this file directly. So you could import any of these other functions into another file and this won't run, so it won't run. So not totally necessary in this case, but good habits, good practice, and I just get used to doing it for all my code. So let's just expand all these out one more time. There we go. So we have our get products links page. Here's our session object. We're going to be using this for all of our code. Our pass product, which we had to do our try and accept. I'm catching this attribute error because not every page has this element on. And we're saving it to a CSV, and then here's our main function which just runs everything for us. So let's run this and we should end up with a CSV file with 46 items in and the data that we specified. Back to our products.csv. There we go. Oh, it's not loaded up with the colors, not to worry. We can see all of the information there. Why didn't we get all the colors? That's annoying. Let's open it again. There we go, they decided to load up. So that's it, so we've done it. So that is essentially how I would always start writing a basic HTML web scraper. There are definitely things that I'd probably change in here. Maybe we'll cover those in the next video in this. If you guys are interested in that, I would add in things like handling any network errors. I would add in logging as well, so I can see what's happening. And I might put in more information, or maybe even some sleep time just to slow the request down. But actually in this case, we're not going for that many pages, so it's probably not needed. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. If you've enjoyed this video and you're looking for more web scraping content, I think you're going to enjoy this video right here.